How to create a hit melody with just one click. Damon Albarn is about to show you.
That's it, that's the preset. It's the Rock 1 preset.
Finally, someone let me out of my cage.
Time for me is nothing cause I'm counting no A's. Nah, I couldn't be there. Nah, you shouldn't be scared.
This sample from Clint Eastwood became the Gorillaz trademark in the music industry. Is it cheating? Perhaps. However, for some reason, it hadn't occurred to anybody other than Damon to create a song using a universally accessible melody. The Gorillaz was created by him and artist Jamie Hewlett, who happens to be the author of the Tank Girl comics. Taking either of them out of the equation would make this either a bunch of music or a bunch of cartoons. For more than 20 years, they worked with dozens of great musicians. But the Gorillaz' main and special feature lies in that the group has a detailed lore. Its history is written from the very early years of each one of its fictional characters' lives and is told through art books and music videos. The history of the creation of Gorillaz begins up to 10 years before the official date of the formation of the group. Damon Albarn is famous in the world of music first and foremost as the lead singer for the British rock band Blur, founded in 1988. Most of you know this band by the song called Song 2. Despite the talents of the members of the group, Albarn and Graham Coxon themselves, who are actually childhood friends, success did not want to find these rising artists. The opportunity to make themselves known was the acquaintance of Albarn with Hewlett in 1990.
I was in a very romantic restaurant with a date, and he wasn't going very well, and then I saw Damon across the way. Excuse me, I need to go to the toilet.
And I was looking like this.
He had that same haircut, and I was like, who's that gypsy? I'd rather be with him than this date.
They weren't on friendly terms when they first met. As the story goes, Hewlett interviewed Blur for Deadline magazine and found Albarn to be arsey and a wanker. Afterward, Hewlett started dating guitarist Graham Coxon's ex-girlfriend Jane Oliver, which contributed to why all of them started to hate him. The romance ended in 1997, and Hewlett and Albarn became roommates in a rented flat. And it was in that flat that the idea came to the guys while watching MTV to create their own group. Hewlett noticed how repulsive and stupid artists sometimes look. Jokingly, the artist recommended to his friend to create a group which consists of characters who are not only made up, but also drawn. Albarn perceived this idea quite well, since this collaboration was a great opportunity for him to start over with a clean slate. That is to say that, from one aspect, he could let go of the burden that hovered over him after the success of the band Blur, and from another aspect, the realization of all the ideas which could not be produced within the British pop band. And one of these ideas was hip-hop. And so, the biography of the group, which was initially called Gorillaz, began in 1997.
It was going to be Chimpanzee, and then we had a row about it, and he said, no, I'll come up with that name. And I said, no, you didn't, I did. And he went on until he said, all right, Gorillaz, because they're bigger than Chimpanzees. And I said, no, you said Gorilla. And we said, okay, and then we found out we couldn't use Gorilla, because there was a Gorilla already, so we said Gorilla.
Generally speaking, what's now left is to create a virtual history. And the Gorillaz' virtual history is significantly flashier than reality, and significantly crazier. It's worth stating from the fact that the history of each of the virtual characters was written in great detail. They even include events that took place before the formation of the group. Let's proceed in order. Murdoch Nichols is a stereotypical troublemaker. His mother abandoned him, and his biological father exploited him to get money for booze. And he got his nose broken while still at school for having a smart mouth. But after he pursued a life of crime, the devil appeared before him, offering him to get famous in return for his soul, a deal which, as you can understand, he accepted. The vocalist 2D is Stuart Pott, the youngster whose music store was crashed into by Murdoch's car with the intention of stealing a synthesizer. Stuart received a hyphoma injury to his first eye and fell into a coma because of the accident, and Murdoch had to take care of him. After the second accident, which resulted in 2D flying out the window of that same vehicle, he woke up from his coma. But, alas, he received a hyphoma injury to his second eye, which is why he has just plain black color instead of pupils in all of the earlier albums. He additionally has been on painkillers his entire life because of a head trauma he sustained as a child. The character was a prototype of Damon.
You know, 2D was one of the easiest characters to create in Gorillaz, solely based off the fact that he was inspired by me.
Drummer Russell Hobbs symbolizes Jamie and Damon's love for hip-hop, and his story directly influences the Gorillaz' sound. He grew up in Brooklyn, where he was enrolled in a school for gifted children, but because a demon took over his body, Russell was expelled from that school. Additionally, he had to be placed into a coma for 4 years until he could be saved by an exorcist. He enrolled in a regular public school where he befriended a group of creative guys who introduced him to the world of hip-hop. Unfortunately, all of his new friends were killed by unidentified individuals. One of them was wearing a black hood, who Russell identified as the Grim Reaper. After the shooting, the spirits of Russell's friends came to reside in his body, the most prominent being Russell's best friend, Del the Ghost Rapper. The process of possession permanently turned Russell's eyes milky white. Russell was traumatized twice and then sent to England, further away from his native country. There, he landed a job at a music store where he was abducted by Murdoch and placed at the drums of his new group. And, well, Noodle's story is needed more for the Gorillaz lore than for musical purposes. As a child, she got into a pro group of super soldiers in Japan, but the project proved to be too dangerous, and they decided to eliminate the children from the equation. However, the scientists decided to pity Noodle, and only her. He erased her memories and used shipping services to send her in a random direction. The package miraculously arrived at the studio where the Gorillaz group was recording. The girl jumped out of the box and immediately played a cool guitar solo, after which she was accepted into the group. It was in this exact virtual lineup that the Gorillaz recorded their debut track by the name of Ghost Train in 1997. And it's important to note here that while approaching each developmental phase of the Gorillaz, Damon and Jamie introduce yet another adjustment to the group's overall story. For example, in the intervals between albums, drummer Russell Hobbs would encounter Death, his old nemesis, while Noodle one day got her memory back and, for a moment of time, even became the group's leader. And that is how Demon Days was recorded, while Murdoch continued getting into different adventures. Prior to the release of the debut album, the world had no idea who was hiding behind the illustrated characters.
Yeah, brilliantly crap.
However, prior to the first album, a mini compilation called Tomorrow Comes Today was released in the year 2000.
Tomorrow comes today.
In March of 2001, one of the Gorillaz' most recognizable tracks, Clint Eastwood, went viral. This is the first single from the first Gorillaz album. The song got its name thanks to the similarities with the musical theme of the movie The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, with Clint Eastwood in the lead role. The music video starts with quotes from the 1978 film Dawn of the Dead. Every dead body that is not exterminated gets up and kills. The people it kills get up and kill. This statement was considered offensive in some countries, which is why it is omitted in the censored version.
Now, time for me is nothing cause I'm counting no A's. Nah, I couldn't be there. Nah, you shouldn't be scared.
Del the Funky Homo Sapien features in this track, and according to his own words, he was initially not supposed to have been featured. In the very last minute, producer Dan the Automator decided to invite him to write his own verse in the track, in hopes that he would do a better job. The original version of the song was made together with the British group Phi Life Cypher. Dan told him what should be written, and Del came up with the text in 30 minutes and forgot about it. Sometime later, one of his pals came up to him and said,
"This new song you got is crazy." And I'm like, "What are you talking about?" "Your new song you got out." I'm like, "What new song?" "You don't know?" They like laughing at me and shit like, "It's playing on the radio all the time, dude. You don't know about your own song? It's a hit song." I'm like, "No, what is you talking about?" Like, something about Gorillaz, and I'm like, "Gorillaz? Like, no, you can't be talking about that." Like,
If you were to try to find the musical hooks that the Gorillaz took inspiration from, then you have to look into the legendary rap opera Deltron 3030.
For so long, the environment said, fuck y'all. Okay, now we in a Cobra clutch once the plan fold up, blow up.
This conceptual album has several similarities with the Gorillaz' early work. In the album, the plot depicts for us the dystopia in the year 3030, where rappers rap about social topics with humorous punchlines. And in the skits, you can hear the voice of, you wouldn't believe it, Damon Albarn.
We find ourselves reflecting.
And now we return to the first successful single, Clint Eastwood. Sound producer Dan the Automator wrote music for Deltron 3030, and Del the Funky Homo Sapien, who was previously mentioned and is the voice of Deltron 3030, rapped a verse. And this is also without the mention of DJ Kid Koala, and yet another member of the Deltron group who was responsible for all the scratches in the Gorillaz' debut album. Many overlook the importance of this album in the context of Albarn and Hewlett's work, and that's extremely unfortunate. While comparing some tracks, you can definitely see similarities. Like for example, here. In Blur, Albarn was at the forefront of one of the last great moments when guitar music was truly pop music. In Gorillaz, he was omnivorous, wanting to try everything and linking up with multi-generational musicians who could bring their own voice, presence, and traditions into Gorillaz. This is why this album has been considered as pretty much everything: alternative rock, lo-fi, dub, hip-hop, trip-hop, and art pop with elements of punk rock, rap rock, and so on and so forth.
I don't see the biggest bands in the world really developing much over their career.
In 2005, their most popular album, Demon Days, was released, which gifted the world with a great number of hit songs. The record occupied the leading position in Great Britain and went platinum, and even twice went platinum in the US. The number of sold copies was over 8 million. This disc provided for the team a total of 5 Grammy nominations and 1 in the category of Best Pop Collaborations with Vocals. This album also featured rappers such as Booty Brown from The Far Side and MF Doom.
Them at got around town, coulda drowned in it, woulda floated, bloated, voted, sugar coated, loaded, hip shooter.
And of course, the well-known Feel Good Inc., together with De La Soul, not only became the most popular in the album, but also in the entire general history of the band. The song was nominated for 3 Grammys at the 2006 Grammy Awards, including Record of the Year, ultimately winning for Best Pop Collaboration. Damon Albarn spoke about the making of this song. I quote, "I remember at the beginning of the formation of Feel Good Inc. quite clearly. I had a beat that was a little bit 80s, very upbeat, but maybe halfway through, my attention wandered. I played something more acoustic, just something that reminded me of the countryside. So I wrote down some keywords to help with the lyrical imagery. Windmill was one of them. It was a trigger to symbolize a different time and also a reference to the dark satanic mills that William Blake wrote about in his verse of Jerusalem. I remember that it all started when I was reading the ingredients off the back of a potato chip packet. And the funniest thing, and I can't not say it, that De La Soul, just like with Del the Funky Homo Sapien, ended up on the track totally by accident. And they did it all in 2 days.
You know, just jumping on the vibe and on the feeling and not really like planning anything. A couple of beers, you know, a couple of other things I can't talk about.
Despite its only modestly positive reception at release, Demon Days is now considered to have left an indelible mark on alternative music and has since been variously hailed as iconic, classic, timeless, and a modern masterpiece.
Kids with guns, taking over, I won't be long.
They then went silent for a few years, and later returned with the album Plastic Beach. The idea for the name of the album came spontaneously. Damon was simply looking for plastic in the sand when he was at the beach next to his house. In turn, Hewlett was exhausted of drawing characters to the point that it was irritating him. However, he later reconsidered his opinion about the matter and decided to adapt them and make them a little older. The guys also began using 3D graphics. Prior to the release, Albarn said that he wants to work with an incredibly eclectic, surprising cast of people, and he succeeded in it. There were collaborations of all kinds. The album featured Snoop Dogg, who for a full 3.5 minutes just stands there and vibes. Alright then, he also had a verse.
Acting a fool when I teach. Welcome to the world of the plastic beach.
Mos Def, who in the track called Stylo, raps to a beat that is not what he's typically used to. And, well, of course, it's not only rappers that get to participate in the album. For example, electronic band Little Dragon broadened the track list. And you can't do without the classic rock artists, such as the likes of Mick Jones and Paul Simonon.
Fall through space out of mind with me.
At the end of that year, the record called The Fall was released as a New Year's gift to the fans. However, in 2011, the guys ceased communication with one another for a few years. The guys didn't want to voice out the exact reason, but one of the reasons behind the dispute were the prompted thoughts of the group's 2D artist about his reduced contribution in the group's development. For the Plastic Beach album, Hewlett was meant to make 4 elaborate videos, which would have told the full story. But the budgets were pulled by music label EMI when he'd only made 2. Then Gorillaz went on tour and, says Hewlett, Damon had half the Clash on stage, and Bobby Womack, and Mos Def, and De La Soul, and fucking Hypnotic Brass Ensemble, and Bashy, and everyone else. It was the greatest band ever, and the screen on stage behind them seemed to get smaller every day. I'd say, we got a new screen? And the tour manager was like, no, it's the same screen, because it seemed to me like it was getting smaller. Added to this, he says that he lost his way a bit, partying a little too hard, not considering myself. And so, he met his future wife, Emma, and he left. He pulled out of Gorillaz, and he pulled out of Dr. D, the opera he was working on with Albarn, and he shut down his animation studio and moved to Paris. I just didn't want to work with him. I didn't want to see him. In turn, Damon performed by himself. By the way, check out how Snoop Dogg jumped in and sang to the beat of Clint Eastwood at one of the concerts. And a single with James Murphy and Andre 3000 titled Do Ya Thing was released in 2012. Damon and Jamie reconciled at a friend's Christmas party in 2014. Hewlett says, I knew the first words that came out of his mouth would be, all right, poof. And he came over and said, all right, poof. And I said, hi, Damon. However, they nevertheless sometimes have disagreements with one another. This is what Hewlett said in an interview. We fight over everything. We'd fight over a worm if we found it at the same time. It's hilarious, but it's stupid. We're in a restaurant, we fight. In a taxi, we fight. In front of people, we fight. It's just one-upsmanship. School for scoundrels. He's an intense person to be friends with, I mean. A lot is required. In 2017, the guys published their long-awaited album, Humanz. And the name of this work is rather interesting, and this is how Hewlett explained it. I see the Z in Humanz as referring to robots, AI, programming, brainwashing, indoctrination, he says. And it's a question to us. Are we human or are we humans? Have we lost the ability to think for ourselves? Do we just believe what we're told? That's how I see it. And the reason the characters appear on the album cover as a real-life version of themselves is because I'm wondering, are these characters becoming more human than us?
'Cause I'm out when I'm staking in the rain.
Albarn has said that with Humanz, he set out to create something not overly political, but an emotional response to politics. The album's overarching theme is the emotional aftermath of an unexpected, world-changing event.
I know she lies alone, she my caller. A sensor in my mind, she my caller.
And yet again, there are a bunch of different collaborations in this album with artists of varied calibers.
The sky's falling, baby, drop that ass for it crash. The sky's falling, baby, drop that ass for it crash.
When my tank's on me, I'll still go to the party.
Just 1 year later, the musicians delighted their fans with a compilation called The Now Now. The release was preceded by a 2-week adventurous game called Free Murdoch, in which fans helped rescue Murdoch from prison. Within the logical framework of the plot, the character missed out on the Now Now tour, where he was replaced by a new musician, Ace.
I don't want this isolation. See the state.
Murdoch returned to the band and, together with other virtual colleagues, recorded a compilation called Song Machine, Season 1, Strange Times. This is a part of the Gorillaz Song Machine project, which includes singles and music videos with different invited artists.
No, I'm gonna fly now, can't be stuck in the red lights. Take flight, the light gon' bloom for the black night.
The phantom's on the way, she's coming down the street. I tried to get to the line.
At this moment, the duo's last album was released in 2023 under the name of Cracker Island. This album proved to everyone that the Gorillaz still got it. And so, music critics highly rated this work. Generally speaking, things are going well for the guys, and they still do concerts. In the previous year, for instance, they performed at the Coachella Festival. Damon Albarn made the Gorillaz a non-genre conforming phenomenon by establishing completely different musical trends. This is exactly why Gorillaz never lose their relevance. And, of course, we don't forget about Jamie Hewlett, the creator of the one-of-a-kind multiverse, which led many to become fans of the band.
Actually, you're smoking a lot more weed lately. You're very calm when you're stoned. You're much calmer when you're stoned.
Okay.
The next video I recommend you watch is about the singer Nelly Furtado, whom you've definitely heard about and listened to her songs. Thanks everyone for watching. If you liked the video, hit the like button and subscribe to the Music Vibe channel. See you soon.